Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were two of the most notorious outlaws of the Great Depression era, and they did some crazy things in their life. But I think one of the craziest things they did to someone was what happened to a mortician named Dillard Darby, a man that was later to promise to Bonnie Parker that he would be their mortician, basically so they wouldn't kill him. You might have seen that in the 1967 Warren Beatty film, but we're not there yet. So Clyde Barrow started this part of Bonnie and Clyde's story when he pulled up by Darby's car and told W.D. Jones to go steal it. Darby was busy having lunch at the Brooks boarding house where he lived, and he was looking out the window of the establishment, and he sees a man get into his Ford V8 and start to drive off with it. Apparently, not leaving the keys to your car in the ignition was a foreign concept to Darby because he left his keys in the ignition. Don't do that. So he exclaims that, "Someone's still in my car." Do you know something else that might get stolen too? If you don't do something about it right now, it's that like button. So you should go ahead and click it right now before it gets taken. I'm Mr. V, and this is The Hidden Lens, and I'm going to take you on a wild journey down some more dusty roads into the back of an old furniture store where Darby is going to meet up with Bonnie and Clyde again and have the last say on this event, or more like put the final nail in their coffin. So back to how this mess started. Sophia Stone was also eating the Brooks boarding house, and when Darby started making a fuss that his brand new 7-day-old Ford V8 coach was getting stolen, she volunteered to let Darby use her car to go chase down the car thief, but only if she could tag along for the excitement. Plus, she needed to keep an eye on her car. Darby had already gotten one car stolen that day. Don't need to make it two, right? The car chases, well, that part is like what you would think it would be. It was a combination of Gone in 60 Seconds and Grand Theft Auto. The only difference is that we're in 1933. W.D. Jones drove that car like a scalded dog, and in the process, both Clyde and Darby quickly lost sight of the stolen car. As far as that part goes, it was okay because they had prearranged meeting place in case something like this were to happen. But what wasn't okay with Clyde is that he didn't like Darby and Sophia getting involved, because the main reason they were stealing Darby's car is because they were gonna use it as a getaway car in a bank robbery, and they were about to do that in that town. So during the high-speed car chase, and after losing sight of the stolen car, Darby and Sophia decided to give up and drive back to town. Seeing this, Clyde, who was upset that someone who was bold enough to try to give chase to his gang, sped around and got behind Darby. And then Clyde aggressively swerved, cutting off Darby and forcing them to come to a screeching halt in the middle of the road. And then Clyde and Buck jumped out of their vehicle with guns drawn. Yeah, Clyde's older brother, Buck Barrow, was there with in the car with Clyde. So was Buck's wife, Blanche Barrow, and Bonnie Parker. The only person missing from this shit show was Raymond Hamilton, who was also a member of the Barrow Gang. Well, Clyde demanded to know why they were following the stolen car. Darby explained that his brand new car was just stolen and he wanted it back. Well, that hacked Clyde off even more, so he hit Darby on the head with the butt of his pistol. Clyde then made him get out of Sophia's car and get into the back seat of his car. Y'all following me here? We just finished this big mess of a car getting stolen, and now Bonnie and Clyde had kidnapped a mortician and his woman friend and have them in the back of their car. Clyde's initial thought was just to shoot them in the middle of the road. That must have been some of his East Helm prison farm experiences bleeding through into his decision making, but he changed his mind and made them get in his car instead. Clyde was mainly mad because the gang's initial plan was to rob the bank in Ruston, Louisiana, where all this took place. And they would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for these two meddling kids. Oh wait, that's the line from Scooby-Doo. This is where the story shifts into downright eerie. And don't worry, we'll get to the gruesome stuff here in a minute, but first you need to know who is going to be doing what to whom. Because right now the mortician Darby is thinking he's going to be the next body on the table getting mortified. Is that even a word? Morticians? Mortified? Anyway, after driving around their kidnapped victims, the Barrow Gang decides it's time to go ahead and let them go. But not before Bonnie asked Darby what he did for a living. And when she found out that Darby was a mortician, she apparently thought this was hilarious. She told him he would probably enjoy embalming her and Clyde someday. She made him promise that he would. I'm sure Darby would have promised just about anything about then. When they dropped them off in Arkansas, Arkansas, it might sound like it's far away, but it's less than an hour drive to the Arkansas state line from where all this started. Well, Buck gave Darby $5 for a bus so they can get back home. That way they don't encounter any other criminal elements. So 13 months later, up in Bienville Parish, Louisiana, near Gippsland, Ivy Methvin cut a deal for his son, Henry Methvin, and in the process, he sold out Bonnie and Clyde. J. Edgar Hoover got what he wanted, and Frank Hammer and his posse, that included Bienville Parish Sheriff Henderson Jordan and Ted Hamilton, were able to make permanent living arrangement changes for Bonnie and Clyde after Ivy parked his truck on the side of the road as bait to slow Clyde down. Well, Bonnie and Clyde ended up laying on a table in Conger furniture store and funeral parlor, and none other than Dillard Darby is standing beside them. Also in attendance and leading the Mortician show is C.F. Boots Bailey. And as Boots puts it, they had a serious problem. As he later said, they were having an incredibly difficult time with Bonnie and Clyde's bodies because of all the bullet holes. So here's what Boots was up against. When you embalm somebody, you're basically draining the blood out of their body and pumping in preservative fluid to replace it. The fluid goes through the veins and arteries, the same pipes the blood was using, and that's what keeps the body from decomposing. But that only works if those pipes are intact. If the body's got a couple of holes in it, you can patch around the holes. Bonnie and Clyde didn't have a couple of holes in them. They had a whole lot of holes in them. And when a body has been hit with that many rounds as Frank Hammer's posse has pumped into them, the vascular system isn't a system anymore. It's Swiss cheese. So Boots is pumping fluid in, and it's just running back out of them, like trying to fill a bucket that somebody hit with a shotgun. Boots and Darby are standing there in the furniture store trying to do precision medical work on two bodies that are leaking from every direction. What a nightmare. Unless you're the dead person, of course. Then that nightmare happened a little bit before all this part. Bonnie was getting exactly what she wanted. Darby was doing that Mortician thing on her. So back to the horror show. While Bailey and Darby were trying to work on those two bodies, something was happening outside that furniture store that made their job 10 times harder. Word spread fast. Arcadia had a population of about 2,000 people, and within hours that number reportedly swelled to 12,000 people. People showed up by horseback, car, plane. The price of a bottle of beer jumped from 15 cents to a quarter in that town overnight. Well, actually not even overnight. And ham sandwiches sold out entirely. Capitalism doesn't sleep, even when there's two dead famous outlaws in the back room. There was a little break when Clyde's father showed up to identify the bodies. After seeing them, he walked out the back of the furniture store and into the front of the showroom and just sat down in a rocking chair. It was still for sale, and he cried. I don't know why they really needed him to come by. They had those photos from the Joplin, Missouri shootout to go by. It was a mess, but we ain't done yet. So after Boots and Darby did what they could with Bonnie and Clyde in the back of that furniture store, the bodies were transported to Dallas. Clyde ended up in the Sparkman Holtz Brand Funeral Home in downtown Dallas, and Bonnie was taken to the McCamey Campbell Funeral Home in South Dallas. Hell, those names sound more like law offices than funeral homes. Now, the account from the Dallas Embalmers is where things get truly stomach-turning. The Mortician's notes describe hours upon hours of work on Bonnie. It took 2 hours just to pick the dirt and rocks out of her hair before they could even wash it. She had a tattoo on her right leg, and it was two hearts. One spelled Roy, and the other spelled Bonnie. And all the embalming fluid that Boots and Darby had used had all leaked out. The Dallas embalmers spent several hours bathing her. Some of the dry blood had to be scraped off, and they used gold dust to remove the rest. And that night, they noticed something called skin flip. That's a Mortician word for when the outer layer of the skin starts separating from the body, because the preservation failed. Remember that fluid that leaked out? By the next morning, she had started to smell and turn dark. And by the last day of the viewing, the notes describe her as rotten, so to speak. The odor was awful. Now, Bonnie had taken more rounds than Clyde, and her wounds were worse. They were very devastating. Her face was messed up. The embalmers rebuilt it to the point where you could hardly tell, though. Only one bullet had gone through her brain, but several others had grazed her noggin, leaving 3 large holes in her scalp that didn't penetrate the skull. Her left eye was badly blackened, so the embalmer put eyeshadow on the other one to make it match and disguise the damage. You kind of get the gist of how this went, right? If you want to get more into the gruesome details, you could probably catch a rerun of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and get you some blood and guts going on. You know, like when they hang that one person up on that hook. I'm just saying. The funerals were a big spectacle. Around 10,000 people viewed Clyde's body. Now for Bonnie, the number was closer to 20,000, and some people say up to 40,000. The largest floral tribute came from a group of Dallas City newsboys. And the sudden end to Bonnie and Clyde sold 500,000 newspapers in Dallas. That's 500,000. Their deaths were the biggest marketing event of the century. But through all that, the crowds, the chaos, the newspapers, the spectacle, there was still a man in the back of the furniture store in Arcadia who had done the work nobody else wanted to do. A man who spent, or let me rephrase that, a man who 13 months earlier had spent time in a boarding home eating lunch when his car got stolen. A man who got kidnapped, got pistol whipped, got shoved into the back seat of an outlaw's car, and then he had a woman laugh in his face and tell him he'll embalm her later. And he did. I probably would too, just out of spite. Bonnie Parker provided as a mortician. Bonnie Parker got exactly what she asked for. She made Dillard Darby promise, and Dillard Darby kept that promise because that's how he was. I just don't think either one of them thought it would actually happen. But weirder things have happened, especially in this public enemy era, that also has John Dillinger and Pretty Boy Floyd driving the country crazy during their crime sprees. But those are other stories that we'll get here soon enough. If this one stuck with you, hit that subscribe button. I'm Mr. V, and I'll see you in the next episode of The Hidden Lens.